First contact, the arrival of the Veldari. The day the Veldari arrived was like any other, until it wasn't. Dr. Elena Reyes stood at her workstation in NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, nursing her third cup of coffee and squinting at the latest data from the Mars rovers. The gentle hum of computers and murmur of voices filled the air, a comforting white noise that usually helped her focus. But today, something felt off. A shout from across the room shattered her concentration. "Holy shit! Look at this!" Elena's head snapped up. Her colleague, Dr. James Chen, was frantically waving people over to his monitor. She hurried over, joining the growing crowd of scientists and engineers. "What is it, James?" she asked, peering over his shoulder. I don't know," he stammered, fingers flying across his keyboard. "But it's big, really big." On his screen, a series of blips appeared at the edge of Earth's orbit. At first glance, they looked like satellites, but their movement was too coordinated, too purposeful. As the assembled team watched in stunned silence, the objects began to arrange themselves into a perfect geometric pattern. "Are those?" Elena's voice trailed off, unable to finish the thought. James nodded slowly. "I think so. Ships. Alien ships." The room erupted into chaos. Phones started ringing, people shouted orders, and within minutes, the entire facility was on high alert. Elena felt her heart racing, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through her veins. This was it. The moment every SETI researcher had dreamed of and feared in equal measure. First contact. As the hours ticked by, reports flooded in from observatories and space agencies around the world. The alien fleet, if that's what it was, had positioned itself in a high Earth orbit, just beyond the reach of most terrestrial defenses. Attempts at communication yielded nothing but silence. Elena found herself thrust into the center of the unfolding crisis. As one of NASA's top exobiologists, she was quickly summoned to an emergency briefing at the Pentagon. The journey from California to Washington, D.C. passed in a blur of hurried conversations and frantic preparations. When she arrived, she was ushered into a room filled with the highest-ranking military and scientific minds in the country. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. General Marcus Steele, a stern-faced man with steel-gray hair to match his name, stood at the head of the table. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice grave, "we are facing an unprecedented situation. An alien force of unknown origin and intent has entered Earth orbit. Our job is to determine the nature of this threat and formulate a response." Elena felt all eyes turn to her as the general continued. "Dr. Rice, you're our expert on potential extraterrestrial life. What can you tell us about these visitors?" She took a deep breath, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. "General, at this point, we know very little. The ships, if that's what they are, appear to be utilizing technology far beyond our current capabilities. Their perfect formation suggests a high level of coordination and intelligence. Are they hostile?" Someone interjected. Elena shook her head. "We can't say for certain. The fact that they haven't immediately attacked could be seen as a positive sign, but their silence is concerning. In many Earth cultures, peaceful contact begins with communication." The room buzzed with murmured conversations and worried glances. General Steele raised a hand for silence. "Our priority must be the defense of Earth. I've already ordered our missile defense systems to high alert and—" A young lieutenant burst into the room, face flushed with excitement. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." The room fell silent, all eyes locked on the large screen at the far end of the room. For a moment, there was nothing but static. Then, slowly, an image began to form. The being that appeared on the screen was unlike anything Elena had ever seen or imagined. It had a vaguely humanoid shape, but that's where the similarities ended. Its skin, if you could call it that, seemed to shimmer and shift, as if it wasn't quite solid. Multiple limbs moved with fluid grace, and what appeared to be eyes dotted its body in no discernible pattern. When it spoke, the words seemed to form directly in Alina's mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "People of Earth," the alien said, its voice a symphony of harmonics that sent shivers down Alina's spine. "We are the Veldari. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and understanding." The room erupted into a cacophony of voices, but Alina couldn't tear her eyes away from the screen. This was history in the making, the moment that would change everything. General Steele stepped forward, his face a mask of controlled tension. "I am General Marcus Steele of the United States military. On behalf of the people of Earth, I ask, what are your intentions?" The Veldari's response was immediate, its mental voice tinged with what Alina interpreted as amusement. "What gives you the right to send probes to Mars? To listen for signals from distant stars? Curiosity is universal, General. We simply have the means to satisfy ours more directly." Alina saw Steele's jaw clench, his military training warring with the unprecedented nature of this encounter. "Be that as it may," he said, "your presence here is causing global panic. We need assurances." "Assurances." The Veldari's form rippled again. "We understand your fear. It is natural. But know this, if we meant you harm, this conversation would be unnecessary. We have the power to end your civilization with a thought." The room fell deathly silent. Alina felt a chill run down her spine, not just from the words, but from the matter-of-fact way they were delivered. It wasn't a threat, she realized. It was simply a statement of fact. Then why? Alina found herself asking, "Why reveal yourselves now?" The Veldari's form seemed to focus on her, its shifting pattern becoming more intricate. "Because you are ready, Dr. Reyes, or nearly so. Your species stands on the brink of a great leap forward. We wish to observe this transition more closely." General Steele's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "So we're just lab rats to you? Some experiment to be studied?" "No, General," the Veldari responded. "You are a fascinating species with untapped potential. We do not interfere, we merely observe. And perhaps learn." Alina's mind was racing. The implications of this encounter were staggering. An advanced alien civilization had been watching humanity for who knows how long, and now they wanted a front-row seat to our development. It was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. "What do you propose?" she asked, ignoring the warning look from General Steele. The Veldari's form shifted once more, and Alina got the impression of a smile, though the being had nothing resembling a mouth. "We will remain in orbit. Our ships will deploy probes and observation drones. We will not interfere with your affairs, but we will be watching, learning. And if you wish, we are prepared to share some of our knowledge." General Steele stepped forward, his face a mask of barely contained fury. "Now wait just a damn minute. You can't just." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, chaos erupted once more. As arguments broke out around her, Alina found herself staring out the window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, an alien civilization was watching, waiting. The future suddenly seemed vast and unknowable, filled with both promise and peril. One thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. Humanity had taken its first steps onto a much larger stage, and the whole universe was watching. As the debates raged on around her, Alina couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Veldari's arrival had opened a door, and for better or worse, humanity was about to step through it. The next few days would be crucial. How would the world's governments respond? How would the public react when the news inevitably broke? And most importantly, what did the Veldari really want? Alina took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. Whatever happened next, she was determined to be at the forefront, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and understanding. The age of Earth's isolation was over. The galaxy was watching, and humanity would need to rise to the occasion. The observation period. In the weeks following the Veldari's arrival, Earth descended into a state of controlled chaos. Governments scrambled to maintain order as news of the alien presence spread like wildfire. Reactions ranged from religious fervor to outright panic, with everything in between. Dr. Elena Reyes found herself at the center of it all, tirelessly working to understand the Veldari and their intentions. The aliens had made good on their promise, deploying countless probes and drones across the planet. These devices, almost invisible to the naked eye, flitted about, observing and recording every aspect of human life. Elena sat in her makeshift office at the newly established Extraterrestrial Research Center, poring over the latest data. The Veldari had provided them with a limited interface to access some of the information their probes were gathering. It was a gesture of goodwill, they claimed, but Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were only seeing what the Veldari wanted them to see. A knock at her door jolted her from her thoughts. James Chen, her colleague from NASA, poked his head in. "Elena, you need to see this." She followed him to the main observation room, where a team of scientists huddled around a large screen. On it, a Veldari probe was capturing footage of a small town in the Midwest. "What am I looking at?" Elena asked, squinting at the image. James pointed to a group of people gathered in the town square. "Watch." As they observed, a young child broke away from her mother and approached the probe. The tiny machine, no larger than a hummingbird, hovered at eye level with the girl. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the probe emitted a soft, melodious tone. The child giggled and reached out, her small hand passing through the holographic field that surrounded the device. "It's playing with her," Elena breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. James nodded. "We've been seeing more and more interactions like this. The probes seem to be learning, adapting to human behavior." Elena felt a mix of excitement and unease. The Veldari had promised not to interfere, but was this crossing a line? She made a mental note to bring it up in the next communication session with the aliens. As the days turned into weeks, humanity began to adjust to the presence of their celestial observers. The initial panic gave way to a wary acceptance, and in some cases, outright enthusiasm. Scientists like Elena were ecstatic about the potential for learning, while governments and militaries remained on high alert. General Steele, ever the pragmatist, had established a global defense network, ready to respond at a moment's notice if the Veldari showed any sign of hostility. But so far, the aliens had kept their word, remaining in orbit and limiting their presence on Earth to their near-invisible probes. 1 month into the observation period, Elena received an unexpected visitor. As she was leaving the research center late one night, she found a man waiting by her car. He was tall and lean, with sharp features and eyes that seemed to see right through her. "Dr. Reyes," he said, his voice low and urgent. "We need to talk." Elena's hand instinctively moved towards her phone. "Who are you?" The man held up his hands in a placating gesture. "My name is Adrian Cole. I'm with a private research group. We've been monitoring the Veldari situation closely, and we have concerns." Elena relaxed slightly, but remained wary. "What kind of concerns?" Adrian glanced around, as if checking for eavesdroppers. "Not here. Meet me tomorrow at the Riverside Cafe, 2 p.m. I'll explain everything." Before Elena could respond, he melted into the shadows, leaving her alone in the parking lot with a head full of questions. The next day, her curiosity got the better of her. She found herself sitting across from Adrian in a quiet corner of the cafe, listening as he laid out his theory. "The Veldari aren't just observing us, Dr. Reyes," Adrian said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They're testing us." Elena frowned. "Testing us how?" Adrian leaned in closer. "We've been analyzing the data from their probes, cross-referencing it with global events. There's a pattern. Every time there's a crisis, a natural disaster, a political upheaval, the Veldari probes concentrate in that area. They're not just watching, they're gauging our responses." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. If Adrian was right, it meant the Veldari's intentions might be far more complex than they'd let on. But she needed proof. "Show me the data," she demanded. Over the next few days, Alina pored over the information Adrian had provided. The more she dug, the more convinced she became that he was onto something. The Veldari weren't passive observers. They were actively studying humanity's resilience and problem-solving abilities. As if to confirm her suspicions, reports began to stream in from around the globe of unusual phenomena. In Japan, a series of small earthquakes struck in a perfectly symmetrical pattern. In Brazil, an unidentified plant species began growing at an alarming rate, threatening to overtake entire ecosystems. And in the Arctic, massive ice shelves were melting far faster than climate models had predicted. In each case, Veldari probes were seen swarming the affected areas, recording every detail of the human response. Alina brought her findings to General Steele, who listened with growing concern. "Are you suggesting these events are being caused by the Veldari?" he asked, his voice tight with suppressed anger. Alina shook her head. "I can't prove that. But the timing and the Veldari's focus on these events are too perfect to be coincidental. They're pushing us, General, testing our limits." Steele's face hardened. "This ends now. We're going to confront them directly." The next communication session with the Veldari was tense. General Steele, with Alina by his side, demanded answers. The alien's shifting form appeared on the screen, its mental voice as calm and melodious as ever. "We do not understand your distress, General Steele. We have adhered to our agreement." "Bullshit," Steele spat. "You're interfering with our planet, causing disasters to test us. That wasn't part of the deal." The Veldari's form rippled, and Alina sensed something akin to amusement. "We have caused no disasters, General. We merely accentuated existing conditions. Your planet was already changing. We simply accelerated some processes to observe your adaptability." Alina stepped forward. "But why? What's the purpose of these tests?" The alien's focus shifted to her, its pattern becoming more complex. "Evolution, Dr. Rice. Growth. Species that stagnate, that fail to adapt, inevitably perish. We are helping you prepare." "Prepare for what?" Steele demanded. The Veldari's response sent a chill through the room. "For what is to come. The galaxy is vast, but not empty. And not all who roam it are as benevolent as we are." The implications of that statement hung in the air long after the transmission ended. Humanity wasn't just being observed. It was being groomed, prepared for some future cosmic crucible. As the observation period stretched on, the Veldari's tests became more overt. Strange atmospheric phenomena appeared over major cities. Unusual animal migrations disrupted ecosystems worldwide. Ancient viruses, long dormant in the permafrost, began to resurface. Each crisis pushed humanity to its limits, forcing cooperation on a global scale. Old rivalries were set aside as nations pooled their resources and knowledge to tackle these unprecedented challenges. And through it all, the Veldari watched. Alina found herself working around the clock, coordinating with scientists and leaders from around the world. The breakneck pace of discovery and innovation was exhilarating, but the constant pressure was taking its toll. Late one night, as she stood on the roof of the research center gazing up at the stars, Alina felt a presence beside her. She turned to find James, looking as exhausted as she felt. "Do you ever wonder if we're doing the right thing?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the hum of the city below. Alina sighed. "Every day. But what choice do we have? The Veldari are pushing us towards something, and we need to be ready." James nodded, his eyes fixed on the sky. "I just can't shake the feeling that we're pawns in some cosmic game we don't understand." "Maybe we are," Alina replied. "But we're learning, adapting. Whatever the Veldari are preparing us for, I believe humanity will rise to the challenge." As if in response to her words, a brilliant light streaked across the sky. A Veldari ship descending into the atmosphere for the first time since their arrival. Alina's phone buzzed with an urgent message from General Steele. "Dr. Rice, Report to headquarters immediately. The game has changed. She cast one last look at the descending ship, a mix of trepidation and excitement coursing through her. Whatever came next, she knew humanity was about to face its greatest test yet. As she hurried to her car, Elena couldn't help but wonder, had the observation period truly ended, or was this just the beginning of a new, more intense phase of the Veldari's inscrutable plan? The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and the whole universe was watching. The turning point. The Veldari ship hovered silently over New York City, its sleek, otherworldly design a stark contrast to the human-made skyline below. Dr. Elena Reyes stood among a group of world leaders and military officials in a hastily assembled command center, all eyes fixed on the massive screens displaying live footage of the alien craft. General Steele's voice cut through the tense silence. What's their game? They've stayed in orbit for months. Why come down now? Before anyone could respond, a familiar mental voice resonated through the room. The Veldari had initiated contact. People of Earth, the alien consciousness began, its tone as melodious as ever. We have observed your responses to our tests. Your adaptability is impressive. We believe it is time for the next phase of our interaction. Elena stepped forward, her heart racing. What do you mean by next phase? What more do you want from us? The Veldari's response was interrupted by a sudden commotion on one of the screens. A group of fighters jets had appeared, rapidly approaching the alien ship. Who authorized that? Steele barked, reaching for his comm device. But it was too late. The jets opened fire, their missiles streaking towards the Veldari vessel. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Then, with a flash of light that momentarily blinded everyone watching, the missiles simply disappeared. The Veldari ship remained unscathed, hovering serenely above the city. We are disappointed. The alien voice resonated, a new edge to its tone. We had hoped for better. Before anyone could react, the ship emitted a pulse of energy that swept across the city. Every electronic device, from the simplest smartphone to the most advanced military hardware, went dead. Panic erupted in the command center as screens went dark and communications failed. In the chaos, Elena locked eyes with General Steele, a silent understanding passing between them. This was the moment they had feared, the moment when the Veldari's true intentions would be revealed. As emergency systems slowly came back online, reports began to flood in from around the world. Similar Veldari ships had appeared over major cities on every continent, each demonstrating the same overwhelming technological superiority. The next few hours were a blur of emergency meetings, frantic calls with world leaders, and desperate attempts to understand the Veldari's newfound aggression. Elena found herself shuttled from one high-level briefing to another, her expertise on the aliens suddenly more crucial than ever. It was during one of these meetings that Adrian Cole reappeared, slipping her a data drive as they passed in a crowded hallway. The key to understanding them, he whispered before disappearing into the throng. Later, alone in her office, Elena examined the contents of the drive. It contained a wealth of data on Veldari activity around the globe, much of it from sources she didn't even know existed. But one file stood out, a partially decrypted Veldari transmission that hinted at something called the Crucible. As she delved deeper into the data, a chilling picture began to emerge. The Veldari weren't simply observing or testing humanity. They were preparing Earth for something much bigger, a cosmic trial that would determine humanity's fate among the stars. Elena's revelations sparked a heated debate among Earth's leaders. Some argued for immediate full-scale retaliation against the Veldari, despite the aliens' clear technological superiority. Others, including Elena, pushed for a more measured approach, seeking to understand the nature of this crucible before taking action. The decision was taken out of their hands when a rogue military faction, frustrated with the perceived inaction of their leaders, launched a surprise attack on a Veldari outpost that had been established in the Sahara Desert. The Human Strike Force, using experimental weapons reverse-engineered from salvaged Veldari technology, managed to breach the outpost's defenses, For a brief, glorious moment, it seemed that humanity had scored its first victory against the alien invaders. But the triumph was short-lived. The Veldari response was swift and devastating. A massive energy beam shot down from orbit, vaporizing the entire area. The Sahara attack force, along with their base of operations, was wiped from the face of the Earth in an instant. As footage of the destruction spread across the globe, the Veldari's mental voice once again resonated worldwide. Your species teeters on the edge of greatness and oblivion. This petty attack demonstrates both your potential and your limitations. The Crucible approaches. Prepare yourselves. The transmission ended, leaving humanity reeling. The Veldari ships retreated to high orbit, but their presence loomed larger than ever in the minds of every person on Earth. In the aftermath of the Sahara incident, Alina found herself summoned to an ultra-secret meeting. In a bunker deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, she joined a diverse group of the world's brightest minds. Scientists, strategists, and even a few individuals whose presence she could only describe as unconventional. General Steele stood at the head of the table, his face grave. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a crossroads. The Veldari have made it clear that this crucible is coming, whether we're ready or not. Our job is to make damn sure we are. He nodded to Alina, who stood to address the group. She laid out everything she had learned about the crucible, a cosmic test that the Veldari apparently administered to species they deemed potentially worthy of joining some greater galactic community. But here's the thing, Alina continued, her voice tight with controlled excitement. I don't think the Veldari are the only players in this game. The data we gathered suggests there are other alien factions out there, some who might not agree with the Veldari's methods. A murmur ran through the assembled group. The idea that Earth might find allies among the stars was both thrilling and terrifying. So what do we do? Someone asked. How do we prepare for a test we don't understand? It was Adrian Cole who answered, stepping out of the shadows where he had been quietly observing. We do what humans do best, he said, a glint in his eye. We adapt, we innovate, and we surprise them. Over the next weeks, a plan began to take shape. While the world's military forces continued to prepare for potential conflict, a special task force was assembled. Led by Alina and supported by some of the most brilliant and unconventional thinkers Earth had to offer, their mission was to try and unlock the secrets of Veldari technology and, if possible, make contact with other alien factions. The work was grueling and dangerous. More than once, Alina found herself in harrowing situations as they pushed the boundaries of human knowledge. There were setbacks and losses, but also breathtaking breakthroughs. They managed to reverse engineer some of the Veldari's more basic technologies, advancing human science by leaps and bounds. Quantum computing, once a theoretical field, became a practical reality. Clean energy solutions proliferated, solving long-standing environmental crises almost overnight. But more importantly, they began to understand the true nature of the crucible. It wasn't just a test of technology or military might. It was a complex evaluation of a species' potential, their creativity, their adaptability, and their capacity for growth. As the day of the crucible drew near, Alina couldn't shake a growing sense of optimism. Yes, humanity was outgunned and outmatched in almost every conventional measure. But they had something the Veldari and their ilk might not expect: an unbreakable spirit and a knack for thinking outside the box. The night before the crucible was set to begin, Alina stood once again on the roof of the research center, gazing up at the stars. The Veldari ships glinted in the darkness, ever-present reminders of the challenge that lay ahead. James joined her, as he had so many nights before. "Do you think we're ready?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Alina turned to him, a small smile playing on her lips. "Ready? Probably not. But when has that ever stopped us?" James chuckled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "True enough. So, what's our play?" Elena's eyes sparkled with determination. "We show them who we really are. Not just what they expect us to be, but what we're capable of becoming. We show them the best of humanity. As if on cue, a brilliant light streaked across the sky. Another Veldari ship, descending towards Earth. But this time, Alina felt no fear. Whatever the crucible might bring, she knew that humanity would face it head-on, with all the courage, creativity, and compassion that had defined their species since they first looked up at the stars and dreamed. The turning point had arrived, and with it, the chance for humanity to prove itself not just to the Veldari, but to the entire cosmos. As dawn broke on the day of the crucible, Alina took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, but she had faith. Faith in human ingenuity, in human resilience, and in the unbreakable spirit that had carried them this far. The Veldari had sought to test humanity. Now it was humanity's turn to surprise the Veldari. Let the crucible begin. Humanity unleashed. The day of the crucible dawned with an eerie calm. Veldari ships hung motionless in the sky, their sleek forms a stark reminder of the cosmic trial humanity was about to face. Dr. Elena Reyes stood in the Global Command Center, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time data from around the world. General Steele's voice cut through the tense silence. All stations, report in. One by one, military and scientific outposts from every continent confirmed their readiness. Humanity had united as never before, pooling resources and setting aside old rivalries in the face of this unprecedented challenge. Suddenly, the Veldari's mental voice resonated through the room, and presumably across the globe. People of Earth, the crucible begins now. Show us your worth. With those words, the alien ships began to move. Energy beams lanced down from the sky, striking seemingly random locations around the planet. But Alina and her team had anticipated this. They're targeting fault lines and unstable weather systems, she announced, her fingers flying over a holographic interface. Activating countermeasures now. Across the globe, networks of advanced sensors and stabilizers, products of humanity's recent technological leap, sprang to life. They couldn't completely negate the Veldari's attacks, but they significantly mitigated the damage. As earthquakes and storms raged, humanity's response was swift and coordinated. Emergency teams, equipped with reverse-engineered Veldari tech, moved with unprecedented speed and efficiency. But this was just the beginning. The next wave of the crucible came in the form of a biological attack. A strange, shimmering mist began to descend on major population centers. It's some kind of nanite swarm, James Chen reported, his face pale as he analyzed the data. It's rewriting DNA on a massive scale. Alina's mind raced. This was beyond anything they had prepared for. But then, an idea struck her. The Veldari said to show our worth, she muttered. Then, louder. General, I need to broadcast to all of our research teams, now. Steele nodded, and suddenly Alina was addressing scientists around the world. The nanites are a test of our adaptability, she explained rapidly. Don't just defend against them. Work with them. See if we can repurpose them. Use them to enhance our own capabilities. It was a desperate gamble, but it paid off. Within hours, reports began flooding in of astonishing breakthroughs. The nanites, once understood, proved to be a powerful tool. Injuries healed at miraculous speeds. Cognitive functions were enhanced. Some individuals even developed limited telepathic abilities, not unlike the Veldari's own mental communication. The alien observers seemed to pause, as if taken aback by this unexpected turn of events. But the crucible was far from over. The next phase brought a new, terrifying challenge, a full-scale invasion. Veldari ground forces, towering biomechanical entities, began to materialize in major cities around the world. Their purpose seemed to be to test humanity's martial prowess, to see how Earth would fare against a superior fighting force. General Steele took charge, coordinating a global defense strategy. Conventional military forces engaged the Veldari troops, buying time for the deployment of humanity's secret weapons. Alina watched in awe as the fruits of their frantic research and development were finally unveiled. Mechs piloted by humans with nanite-enhanced reflexes strode into battle. Energy weapons, based on reverse-engineered Veldari tech, but with distinctly human innovations, proved surprisingly effective against the alien armor. But it was the unconventional tactics that truly turned the tide. A team of hackers, led by an unlikely alliance of former cybercriminals and military tech experts, managed to temporarily disrupt the Veldari's communications. Guerrilla tactics, honed through centuries of human conflict and adapted for this cosmic war, kept the aliens off balance. Hours stretched into days as the battle raged on. Humanity suffered heavy losses, but they gave as good as they got. For every city that fell, another managed to drive back the Veldari forces. Through it all, Alina and her team worked tirelessly, analyzing data from the battlefield and coming up with new strategies. They noticed patterns in the Veldari attacks, weaknesses that could be exploited. They're not used to prolonged conflict, Alina realized, poring over combat footage. Their technology is superior, but they lack the endurance, the sheer stubborn determination that humans have honed through millennia of warfare. This insight proved crucial. As the conflict stretched on, the Veldari's movements became more predictable, their tactics less imaginative. Humanity, on the other hand, continued to adapt and innovate. On the fifth day of continuous battle, Alina made a startling discovery. Hidden within the complex data streams of the Veldari communications was a message, not from the Veldari themselves, but from another alien faction. "General," she called out, her voice trembling with excitement. "I think we've made contact with potential allies." The message was brief and cryptic, but its implications were enormous. There were other species out there, watching the crucible unfold, and not all of them agreed with the Veldari's methods. With this new information, a daring plan was formed. While the bulk of Earth's forces continued to engage the Veldari directly, a small, elite team would attempt to make direct contact with these potential allies. Alina found herself part of this team, along with James, Adrian Cole, and a handful of the brightest minds and most capable operatives humanity had to offer. Their mission was nothing less than to change the rules of the game. As they prepared to embark, Alina took one last look at the battle-scarred Earth from the window of their experimental spacecraft. The planet looked fragile from this vantage point, but she knew better. Humanity had proven its resilience time and time again throughout the crucible. "Ready?" James asked, strapping himself into the co-pilot's seat. Alina nodded, a fierce determination in her eyes. "Let's go make some friends." Their ship, a hybrid of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Veldari tech, shot into space. They had managed to decrypt part of the alien transmission, giving them coordinates for a rendezvous point just beyond the moon's orbit. As they approached the designated location, a ship suddenly materialized before them. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, neither human nor Veldari in design. A voice spoke in their minds, similar to the Veldari's mental communication, but somehow warmer, more welcoming. "Greetings, humans. We are the Arcturus Collective. We have been watching your trial with great interest." Alina took a deep breath and responded, "We're honored to meet you. We come seeking understanding and possibly alliance." There was a pause, and then, "Your species has shown remarkable potential. The Veldari's methods are outdated. We believe there is a better way. Are you willing to learn?" The implications of this message were staggering. Not only was humanity not alone in the universe, but they had also managed to attract the attention of a potentially friendly advanced civilization. As Alina and her team began to communicate with the Arcturus Collective, exchanging knowledge and forming the beginnings of an alliance, the tide of the battle on Earth began to turn decisively in humanity's favor. Armed with new insights and bolstered by the promise of cosmic allies, Earth's forces launched a coordinated global counteroffensive against the Veldari. Cities that had fallen were reclaimed. Veldari strongholds, once thought impregnable, crumbled under the combined might of human determination and newly acquired knowledge. The Veldari, for the first time since their arrival, seemed to be on the back foot. Their mental communications, once calm and assured, took on a tone of confusion, even desperation. As the final push began, with human forces converging on the main Veldari command ship, Alina and her team raced back to Earth. They carried with them not just the promise of alliance with the Arcturus Collective, but a deeper understanding of the cosmic stage humanity was about to step onto. The fate of the Earth and humanity's place in the galaxy hung in the balance, but Alina felt a surge of pride and hope. Against all odds, humanity had not just survived the crucible, they had excelled. As their ship re-entered Earth's atmosphere, Alina saw the gleaming Veldari command ship descending towards the United Nations headquarters in New York. The final confrontation was at hand. Humanity had been unleashed, and the universe was about to learn just how formidable they could be. A new understanding. The Veldari command ship hovered above the United Nations headquarters, its imposing silhouette casting a long shadow over the New York skyline. Dr. Alina Reyes stood with General Steele and a coalition of world leaders, watching as the ship slowly descended. The air was thick with tension, the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. "They're hailing us," a communications officer announced, her voice tight with anticipation. General Steele nodded grimly. "Put them through." The familiar mental voice of the Veldari resonated through their minds, but this time there was a noticeable difference. Gone was the cool detachment, replaced by a tone that Alina could only describe as respectful. "People of Earth," the Veldari began, "you have surpassed all expectations. The crucible is complete." A murmur ran through the assembled leaders. Alina stepped forward, her heart racing. "What does this mean for Earth, for humanity?" There was a pause, and then the air shimmered as a Veldari materialized before them. Its form was just as alien and mesmerizing as Alina remembered, but now it seemed somehow less intimidating. "It means," the Veldari spoke, its mental voice resonating in perfect sync with its shimmering form, "that you have earned your place among the stars." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Humanity had not just survived the crucible. They had passed it with flying colors. As the implications of this statement sank in, Alina's mind raced with questions. "But why?" she asked. "Why put us through all of this?" The Veldari's form rippled, a gesture Alina had come to recognize as their equivalent of a contemplative sigh. "The universe is vast and often hostile," it explained. "Species that cannot adapt, that cannot face adversity and emerge stronger, do not survive long in the cosmic arena. The crucible is our way of preparing promising species for the challenges that lie ahead." General Steele stepped forward, his face a mask of controlled anger. "And that gives you the right to terrorize our planet, to cause destruction and loss of life." The Veldari turned its attention to the general, its form pulsing with what Alina interpreted as regret. "We understand your anger. Our methods are not without controversy, even among our own kind, but we believe them necessary." It was at this moment that Alina decided to reveal their trump card. "We know," she said, her voice steady. "We made contact with the Arcturus Collective. They showed us another way." The Veldari's form froze, its patterns becoming erratic. For the first time since their arrival, the alien seemed genuinely surprised. "You reached out to other species during the crucible." Alina nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "We adapted. We innovated. Isn't that what the crucible was all about?" The Veldari was silent for a long moment, its form shifting through complex patterns. When it spoke again, there was a new tone to its mental voice, something akin to admiration. "Truly, your species continues to surprise us. This is unprecedented in the history of the crucible. You have not only passed our test, but have begun to forge your own path among the stars." As if on cue, a new ship appeared in the sky above them. Its design was clearly neither human nor Veldari. its sleek form radiating an aura of advanced technology and benevolence. The Arcturus Collective had arrived. What followed was a diplomatic summit unlike any in human history. Representatives from Earth, the Veldari, and the Arcturus Collective gathered to discuss the future of humanity's role in the greater galactic community. Elena found herself at the center of these negotiations, her understanding of both human nature and alien perspectives proving invaluable. As the talks progressed, a new picture of the cosmos began to emerge. The galaxy, they learned, was teeming with life. Thousands of intelligent species coexisted in a complex web of alliances, trade agreements, and occasionally conflicts. The Veldari, it turned out, were one of the older race's self-appointed guardians who saw it as their duty to prepare younger species for the realities of cosmic coexistence. The Arcturus Collective, on the other hand, represented a different philosophy. They believed in mentorship and gradual integration, arguing that the shock of the crucible was unnecessarily traumatic. As the summit progressed, it became clear that humanity's unique response to the crucible had inadvertently sparked a major shift in galactic politics. Earth became a focal point of debate between different alien factions, with humanity's innovative spirit and adaptability held up as examples of the potential for younger races. Throughout the negotiations, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of pride in her species. Despite being outgunned and outmatched, humanity had not only survived, but had managed to carve out a unique position for itself on the cosmic stage. The final agreement, reached after days of intense discussion, was groundbreaking. Earth would be granted provisional membership in the galactic community, with both the Veldari and the Arcturus Collective acting as sponsors and mentors. Humanity would have access to advanced alien knowledge and technology, but with the understanding that they would develop at their own pace, maintaining their unique culture and innovative spirit. In return, humanity would share their perspectives and creativity with the wider galactic community. The aliens, it seemed, were particularly interested in human arts, music, and literature, finding in them a vitality and diversity that had become rare among older species. As the summit drew to a close, Elena found herself standing with James and Adrian, looking out over the New York skyline. The city was alive with celebration, holographic displays in the sky, showing similar scenes from around the world. So, James said, a note of wonder in his voice, "We did it. We're part of a galactic community now. What happens next?" Elena smiled, her eyes fixed on the stars that now held so much more promise and mystery than ever before. "We explore, we learn, we grow, but most importantly, we remain true to who we are." Adrian nodded in agreement. The Veldari wanted to see if we could adapt to cosmic challenges. The Arcturus Collective saw our potential for peaceful cooperation. But it's our human spirit, our creativity and determination, that will define our place among the stars. As if to underscore his words, a group of Veldari and Arcturus representatives approached them, accompanied by General Steele and several world leaders. Dr. Reyes, the Veldari spokesperson, said, its mental voice tinged with what Elena now recognized as respect. "We have a proposal for you." Elena listened as they outlined their plan. A new initiative was being formed, a collaborative effort between humans, Veldari, and the Arcturus Collective. Its goal was to seek out other young species in the galaxy, offering them guidance and support as they took their first steps into the cosmic community. "We believe your experience and perspective would be invaluable to this project," the Arcturus representative added. "You represent the best of what humanity has to offer." Elena felt a surge of excitement and purpose. This was an opportunity not just to explore the stars, but to help shape the future of galactic civilization. She looked at James and Adrian, seeing the same excitement reflected in their eyes. "When do we start?" she asked. As the plans were laid out, Elena's mind raced with the possibilities that lay ahead. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and had emerged stronger, wiser, and with a newfound place in the universe. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be new challenges to face, new mysteries to unravel, and undoubtedly new conflicts to resolve. But Alina had faith in humanity's ability to adapt, to innovate, and to surprise. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Alina looked up at the stars, no longer distant and unreachable, but full of promise and potential. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger world, and the universe would never be the same. The crucible was over. The real adventure was just beginning. In the years that followed, Earth became a hub of interstellar activity. Alien embassies were established, cultural exchanges flourished, and human scientists worked alongside their extraterrestrial counterparts to unlock the secrets of the cosmos. The scars left by the crucible slowly healed, replaced by a sense of wonder and purpose. Humanity's unique blend of creativity, resilience, and adaptability proved to be a valuable asset in the galactic community. Alina, James, and Adrian found themselves at the forefront of this new era, leading missions to distant stars and mediating conflicts between species. Their experiences during the Crucible had prepared them for the complexities of cosmic diplomacy in ways they could never have imagined. As Alina stood on the bridge of Earth's first true interstellar vessel, preparing to embark on a mission to make first contact with a newly discovered intelligent species, she couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. The universe, they had learned, was vast beyond comprehension, filled with wonders and dangers in equal measure. But humanity was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with their indomitable spirit and newfound cosmic allies. As the ship's engines hummed to life, Alina gave the order to engage. With a flash of light, they leaped into the unknown, carrying with them the hopes and dreams of Earth and their place in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. The age of humanity's cosmic adventure had truly begun.